Hello and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Welcome to my peeps. Let's take a review and glance our eyes at this game that I got from Uwe, someone tell me if it's Uwe or Uwe Rosenberg, Nusfjord, which is a game about fishing. What a surprise from the designer. In this game, you use wood, you use fish, and occasionally you dabble with gold. But the idea is you're building out your fishing company and your fishing village and your fishing. So let's just get into this game. Okay, let's examine Nusfjord. I'm probably mangling it because I'm just not a Nordic kind of guy. That Nordic track didn't teach me anything. All right, you get a box. You sure do. Every player gets their own special play mat, their tableau of sorts, and one of these suckers, fishing phase. Everybody starts off with these shares. We'll go over those shortly. A personal supply. It's very personal to me. And then you have the common area. These are common actions anyone can take. You have builders and boats, where you can buy these or procure these through actions, and then they will benefit you. You have buildings. Buildings are very big. There's 3 types of buildings, and they just simply call them A, B, and C buildings. A buildings are the cheapest. They usually have nominal benefits throughout the game. B is a little more powerful, and C buildings don't come out till later, and they generally have larger victory point motivations where you pay more, but then you have a little more, they provide more of an impact in the victory point department. Then you have the fish banquet table. That's right, you have to serve fish. It's all about the fish. That's how you do an efficient engine building machine. Also, there's not only 1 or 2, but 3 decks of different card types. And so I started off, for example, with just the simple A with the 1 fish, and then you can have a different deck, which is the 2 fish deck, and then the 3 fish deck of buildings. Very clever, very interesting. As you do different player counts, you're going to have different tokens that kind of help you know what goes on during the rounds. There are 7 rounds in this game. I'm going to do the solo game just because it's the quickest to teach you. And there's two modes of the solo game. If you're doing a 2-player game, then you will have 2 of these, and you'll go back and forth, like for round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4. At certain ends of rounds, that's when you'll bring out the C cards, etc. And then you finally have wood, fish, and gold. That's it. It's really, as far as an Uwe Rosenberg game, this is pretty bare bones. Can it hold muster in the gameplay department? That's what we're about to find out. Okay, so on your turn, you have goals. First off, you cover up your play space with forests. These forests are long, elongated. They cover 2 spots. You'll notice that anything uncovered at the end of the game is negative victory points. So one of the motivations is going to be to fill this tableau by covering over with buildings or forests so that you have these negative points reduced. That's one of the things. So the other thing is, but you will also at the same time want to basically deforest, because that's how you get the wood that you need to pay for the buildings, etc. The economy here is pretty simple, but it's pretty potent. It's all about the fish, and it's all about the buildings, and occasionally it's all about the gold. I could make that into a wrap. Here's your personal supply, and this is where you're going to store fish and wood and gold that are able to be used to purchase. That's not to be confused with a reserve, which is also available, that you can store most of the time fish, sometimes other things. But in order to use that, you have to take a specific action, and you only get 3 per turn to transfer all of the goods here over into your supply. Also, you have shares. This is a little more potent in multiplayer than single player. In multiplayer, you have 3 unused shares. If you don't issue these shares, then you're going to wind up having negative points at the end of the game. You start off with 2 shares, and those are there for you. You'll see how they're useful later. When you sell these shares, or when you issue these shares, you're going to get gold, which is a precious commodity. It's as precious as you would expect gold to be. When you issue them, they go out as a foreign, and then other players can actually grab these shares, and then whenever you make fish, they make fish, and we'll just think of fish as bank You make bank, they make bank. Or you could buy these back if you want to. Anyway, let's roll. This is turn 1. Now, the first thing you do is you basically handle the fish. You do your fishing phase. All right, that was the really terrible version of a seagull. And you go down the list. It's pretty simple. It's a little esoteric to begin with. I'm like, what's going on? Once you understand what's going on, after basically the first 2 turns, you're going to get it. So the fishing phase, first thing it does is, if you have elders, you got to feed your elders. So you got to give them a fish. I don't have any elders. And then your shares in foreign possession, nobody owns any of my shares. Then your shares in personal supply. Now, these only go on the actual shares that have been issued. Finally, they go in your reserve. Now, there's a maximum 8. If you ever have more fish than you could fit here, then it just goes back to the general supply. So that's, again, a point of efficiency. Then, there we go. We're ready to go. This is the fishing phase is done. Now, you have your 3 actions, and I can take up to 3 actions. I can just flat out get a gold. Probably not your least potent move. Transfer reserve. We only have 1 fish. It wouldn't be efficient. Serve fish. Now, the reason you would serve fish is because the only way to activate elders or use them is if you actually give them fish. You serve the fish and say, I will give you a fish in exchange for your special purpose. Well, that's okay. But you notice that as you go, it costs more to serve the more people. Why would you end up doing that? Well, 2 reasons. 1, you get a gold, and gold is, again, a rare commodity, for every served plate that you spend. 2, you're going to need to use these. Noting, however, that if you serve fish, you're giving your opponents a chance to use what you've just done instead. So a lot of times I'll find myself not wanting to just add 1 fish because I want to make sure that I don't just basically give my enemies free food. All right, so these are our actions. You can build a building. That's obvious. You pay the cost on the left. And depending on what it says in the text, you will get to do something either immediately or before another action is done, or any other. There's certain phases after you build, before you build, immediately, etc., etc., etc. All right. And what we do is you would buy this, and sometimes they have victory points. Sometimes they don't. This is a low victory point for the most part. But notice that even if you get one without a victory point, you're still basically saving a victory point from being lost. So keep that in mind. And so yeah, so build a building, issue a share. This is where if we're like, oh, I want to issue a share and get 2 gold so that I don't have to, it's going to be better for me in the end. Buy all shares, so you can, for 1 gold, so someone else, you get 2 gold, but someone else could, for 1 gold, buy it. And the later you go in the rounds, the less expensive it is. So people will be buying up shares, and they get victory points. Deforest. This is where you get the wood. You can either remove a forest and get 5 wood. You can thin them out, which means you don't get rid of the forest, but you probably won't get as much wood. Or you reforest, because you're going to need to do wood again. Got it, forest. All right, and then finally you build a ship, and that lets you basically pay the cost, do the ship. Again, why did I pick 3 food? I should have explained that. Is because that's the number that shows on your ship. As you build ships, you're going to expose bigger numbers. This is the number of fish. The more boats you have, the more fish you bring in, the more you can do with those fish during the rest of your turn. And finally, take an elder and use them immediately. We're going to do that first, just to explain it. So I take an elder. I can use them immediately. So I need to grab one of these 6 elders and decide what to do. Now, I'm going to take the forest manager here. Why? Well, why not? So in order to do that, I have to take a fish. If I didn't have any fish here, I wouldn't be able to do it. And then I can do the action. Not only can I take the elder, I can use the action. So you don't have to like spend an action to take him and then spend another action to use him. On subsequent turns, if you can still use them, but you again have to pay a fish and in order to use them. So remove 2 forests. I'm going to remove these two forests here. One's a double stack. That's nice. And I get 5 wood and a gold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wood and a gold. Gold is worth a victory point at the end of the game too, so you might be a little more hesitant to use it. So there we go. That's what we did for our first action. Second action is that we could immediately reforest that if we wanted to try again. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to build a ship. Okay? The only ship we can afford right now is this sloop. So that's going to be 2 wood and 2 fish. So 2 wood, 2 fish. Look at that. Now, when it's time for the fishing phase, we're going to get 5 fish instead of 2 fish. And thirdly, what are we going to do for our third action? We could build a building, but we really don't have a lot to be able to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to build a building. It's going to cost me 2 wood. Now, why is it so inexpensive? Well, I'll tell you, Wilbur. It's inexpensive because it actually doesn't change your negative victory point. So it's still going to be a negative victory point, but I can immediately build a free sloop. So that kind of negates it. So like negative victory point, positive victory point. So there we go. So now I get 6 fish. And then that's it. That's we're done. So what we do now in regular play, the first thing we do is we would pull in the final phase, we would pull our action tokens back. But this is solo play. We don't do that because there's a special twist on that. And so we're done. We do that. We switch to turn 2, and there's no special instruction there. And so then we bring out the blue tiles here. And then we do the fish phase again. Let's try that again. This time we get 6 fish. 6 fish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fish. All right. So again, now we have to put one on our elders. Got to feed them again. And then we put one in shares in foreign possession. None of that's going on. Then we go ahead and put them in our personal shares. That's 2. And then the rest go in the reserve. So it might be time to go transfers. Normally you'd want to wait till you had the most that you could to move those into the supply, but we'll see how it goes. We're just doing a gameplay example. We're not doing everything. All right. And there we go. That's the end of the fishing phase. Now we're back to using our actions. In solo play, whatever you used last time, you can't use now. So I mean, you can use the 1 copy in action if you wanted to, but in this case, we're just going to show example like I reforest. So I place 2 forests back on a free double space. That means I can use them again to get more wood, which isn't a bad idea. And then I can issue a share. So I'm going to issue one of my unused shares. There we go. There we go. And I get 2 gold. So look at that. Now I've got 2 gold. Now if you look at the price of stuff, you can see some of these buildings take gold. Matter of fact, this takes 3 gold. Yeah. So that's not bad. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to use the build a building. I'm going to use all 3 gold to, see how fast we're going? All 3 gold to buy the residential home. Now that's worth 4 victory points. Mega cool. Whenever one of your elders discards 3 fish, you get a wood. That's kind of cool. I have an elder. He's about to have 3 fish. Life is good. And that's it. That's as rapid as it gets. It goes quickly. All right. So we're done. We did all 3 actions, our buildings, etc. So now we're going to go ahead and pull the red ones back instead of the blue ones. And go back up to turn 3. And now we're going to go do the fishing. Now the fishing says, the fishing is, so we're still at 6. So we're going to grab 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. First thing is the elders. Now what happens when there's 3 fish on an elder? Usually one of it goes in your supply and the other 2 go back into the general supply. Notice though that whenever he discards 3 fish, I get a wood. So look at that. Already it's turned out to be a boon for me. All right. And then shares in foreign possession. Now I got to put 1 there. Then I got to add 2 here and then 1 in reserve. So now I'm there we go. So then that's what we're looking at, and that's where we're at. So we're done with the fishing phase. Life is good. So now we have choices to make. So I'm going to do 1 more action here, transfer reserve. I'm going to transfer all my fish here. Why am I going to do that? Because I'm going to serve fish. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. We're just going to do 3. Now that you don't, basically by feeding fish you can get rid of the excess. I have served 3 fish. I'm going to get my 3 gold back. Look at that. That's quick. All right. So now we're able to use elders if we want to. So I'm going to use my elder. I'm going to use my elder. That means I take a fish, I put it on him, and it says remove 2 forests for 5 wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wood and a gold. So already, folks, we're almost halfway through the game. That's how fast the solo play goes. A little slower for multiplayer, but as you can see, things are stepping along. So now we switch over to the blue, but look what happens. This one has an instruction that says place 4 sea buildings. So these sea buildings, as you'll notice, have a lot, 25 fish, really? immediately get 5 gold, plus you get 3 victory points. So these are when you start seeing those. And so the last half of the game, you have an opportunity to look at some more high-powered buildings. This is not uncommon for sort of victory point building stuff. But that's it. We're halfway through the game. I'm going to stop there. If we were to stop there, we would simply count the points and see how we went. We'd have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Or 8, 9, 8, 7, 6. So, obviously, I wouldn't want to stop halfway through a game. I would want to start building back up. But anyway, that's basically Nusfjord. A highly affordable game from Uwe Rosenberg. Let's get into my final thoughts on what I think of this. Alright, Nusfjord. Let's take a look at what we think of this game. Okay, let's go over the cons first. If you are used to some of the more meatier Rosenberg affairs, this is going to be streamlined. We'll put it that way. If you're some of the person like, hey, I've got 10 digits, I can track 10 resources, then you might not find this to be satisfying as much. If you are so used to A Feast for Odin or name any other Rosenberg game that's historically delicious. New players, or introducing it to players, it might take a round for them to understand, to get the whole fish distribution mechanism, which starts off every round with the distributor fish and like these different places. After that, after one round, it makes sense. You can also explain it thematically by going over why the fish are not just going, I get 5 fish. I take 5 fish, I go here, 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 here. That's really the one little hurdle, not a big one, to, for people that you're introducing to, because you generally likely, if you're going to, we'll get into that, my final thoughts. At lesser player counts, the whole shares system, where you have shares and you're trying to put out shares for other people to grab shares and stuff, it's not going to be as interesting or as impactful as if you have 3 or 4 players. I don't think, or solo and 2-player, I don't think it necessarily, that particular part of the game particularly shines particularly. Anyway, it seems that when you're dealing with this game, there's a lot of variable pieces, a lot of things that are going to be different every time. Well, there's going to be several places that are going to be different every time. Well, okay, the buildings are going to be different every time. The elders, on the other hand, are close to the same, about the same, and I honestly think it would have been cool if they'd had more elders. There are expansions that are grossly, like, beyond my budget to be able to buy. Had I known then when I got this game, I had a really sweet deal. Didn't know it at the time because I just sat on it for a year. Not literally. That's why the box is still that high, not that high. And then the only other thing is, as you're playing, there is a tendency sometimes to feel like there's a real glut of resources or a famine of resources, and learning to use your resources is a big deal. For players starting out, they might be overwhelmed by, wow, I don't have anything. Oh, I have too much. It's part of the journey. But again, I'm looking at this for people I would introduce this game to, because this is, again, we'll get into this later. All right, that's it for the cons. Now let's get into the pros. The art has been kind of maligned as far as, I don't really, some of it, it's been described as anything from underwhelming to creepy. I love it. I think it really evokes the Nordic fishing town feel. The elders, some of them look like people I've known in the past because I have Danish roots. The 3 basic resources, which I would think, and that was one of the reasons why when I opened it, I'm like, oh, there's only 3. I wonder how simple this is. This might be too simple for me. I'm a liar to myself, because there's an astounding set of choices that you can make because of the way that the game's set up, and trade-offs that you can make with the 3 basic resources: fish, gold, fish, wood, and gold. The amount of variability in even 1, let alone 3 of the banks of buildings is highly notable. You will not be bored. If you get tired of a certain set of buildings shuffling, you switch to the B deck and the C deck, and they're all a little bit different and stuff. Plus, if you do want to bite the bullet, you can buy, I think, 3 different expansion packs. I would love to see, like, the, the Golden Fish edition that basically gives me all those, because I don't know that I can pay the aftermarket cost for those. But there's plenty to do in there. There's just a lot of
replayability. I love the smooth flow of this action selection game. I love that you make your move. There's the special powers that augment those actions from buildings that you get, or there's actions like it tries to give you as many actions as it can while still being constraining in how many actions you can take. I love there's the choice and the trade-offs. Like, I can buy this building. It's not going to be worth much at the end of the game, but it does cover up a negative victory point spot, and I will get an instant bank, versus I have these major C buildings that I'm going to buy. And then there's the communal fishing aspect. Like, when am I yeah, I'm going to feed people, but if I feed, that means someone else is going to basically take advantage of it. So how much do I want to feed of my fish? I want to make sure that it's still around so I can make advantage of it when it comes back to me. There's the pivotal impact of what to buy, when to buy it, how to net extra VP. Solo is phenomenal. It is quick. It is easy. It makes sense. It's like bone simple, but it's wonderful. And every time you play it, you can play this Euro game with some meat and some thinky in 20 minutes. Like, that is unheard of. It's beautiful for people that just want to dive in and play too. I played 3 or 4 games in a row of Nusfjord. 2 players is very good too. 3 or 4 is phenomenal. 2 is just fine. Again, you don't necessarily get that on trading shares that much, but it's a small trade-off. Cohesion of the theme is very evident. I really do feel like I'm sending my boats out to fish. They're bringing in their catch. I'm buying shares in other companies. I'm doing things on the shore to improve my life. Restocking wood at just the right time. And I love the sneak preview of the sea cards. Like, for a couple turns, I get to see some buildings that I can lay claim to them. I get a sneak peek preview of these cards before I have to put them out in the main area where anybody can grab them. Cool. It's got kind of a San Juan vibe if you ever played San Juan the card game. I see little bits and pieces in that. Anyway, Nusfjord is the absolute friendliest, tightest, best at any player count Rosenberg game that I've yet played. It sings along at a comparatively Porsche traveling on the Autobahn pace, compared to the more thinky tank meets trench level pace of Rosenberg's heavier fare. I think it's a great introduction. Previously, I had done a review very previously of Rakehold, which was also a very simple kind of it was also a simple thing, but where Rakehold strips basically, Rakehold showed you how to make an introductory game that's a shadow of what could be. Nusfjord shows you how to make an introductory game that takes less of the big picture of normal Rosenberg games and builds much, much more from it into a full meaty game in a compact time frame that I can introduce. I will always introduce this. I A/B tested it, to use a term in computer testing, where Rakehold, Nusfjord. Teaching Rakehold was about the same time. The enthusiasm was about nothing. Nusfjord, I was able to teach, like I said, the only hurdle was just kind of explaining the fish distribution. I was able to teach this game in about the same amount of time, and people were really excited to play it again. They were talking about it. They were buzzing about how they could have bought that building or this building. It really, really is the game. There's no reason that I would ever introduce people to Rakehold with Nusfjord in the picture. Rakehold, people are like, that's nice. What else you got? Nusfjord is like, let's do this again. That's when you know you're dealing with a great game. Best introductory game for Rosenberg titles that I own. I highly recommend it for people who want to get into the Eurogame feel. I definitely recommend it for people who are solo players generally, who like a nice little puzzle challenge that you can play 1, 2, 3 games in an hour practically once you understand the cards. So anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.